request everyone in the hall to please stand up and give a standing ovation to Honorable Ministers. Namaskar. Max Muller, a British philologist. I request the audience to be seated, please. Namaskar. Max Muller, a British philologist and Orientalist, once said, "If I were asked under what sky has human mind most deeply pondered on the greatest problems of life and has found solutions, I should point to India. Predominance of informal employment has become one of the greatest challenging features of labor market scenario globally. In India, more than 90% of the total workforce has been engaged in the informal sector. This segment of the economy has its own challenges and inbuilt vulnerabilities. Though the governments across the countries have taken several measures to address these, it, however, remains an ongoing and continuous process. Honorable dignitaries, revered delegates, and distinguished guests, I welcome you all to the international seminar on the topic Formalization and Social Security Coverage for Workers in the Informal Sector, Challenges and Innovations. This two-day technical seminar has been organized by the Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India, in collaboration with Employee State Insurance Corporation and International Social Security Association. With this forward, I now invite our dignitaries on the stage. I first call upon Shri Ashok Kumar Singh, Director General, Employee State Insurance Corporation, to come on the dais. I now invite Dr. Mohammad Azman, President, International Social Security Association, to come on the stage. It is my privilege to invite Ms. Sumita Dawra, Secretary, Labour and Employment, Government of India, on the dais. The next distinguished to honor us with her presence on the stage is Sushri Shobha Karandlaje, Honorable Minister of State for Labour and Employment and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Government of India. It is my honor to invite Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya, Honorable Minister of Labour and Employment and Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India, on the dais. Thank you very much. I request the dignitaries to be seated. Flowers whisper beauty to the world, even as they fade, wilt, and fall. Someone rightly said, I'd rather wear flowers in my hair than diamonds around my neck. It is time to welcome our revered dignitaries with these invaluable gifts of nature. I request Ms. Sumita Dawra, Secretary, Labour and Employment, Government of India, to welcome Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya, Honorable Minister of Labour and Employment and Youth Affairs and Support, Government of India, with a bouquet and shawl as a mark of respect. I request Shri Ashok Kumar Singh, Director General, ISSA-ESIC, to extend a special I request Shri Ashok Kumar Singh, Director General, ISSA-ESIC, to extend a special welcome to Sushri Shobha Karandlaje, Honorable Minister of State for Labour and Employment and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Government of India, as a token of respect. is my pleasure to call upon Shri Rupesh Kumar Thakur, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India, to accord a hearty welcome to Ms. Sumita Dawra, Secretary, Labour and Employment, Government of India, as a token of gratitude. I request Ms. T.L. Yadav, Financial Commissioner, ESIC, to extend a cheerful salutation to Dr. Mohammad Azman, President, International Social Security Association, as a mark of respect. Shri Deepak Joshi, Insurance Commissioner, ESIC, to offer a warm welcome to Shri Ashok Kumar Singh, Director General, ESIC, with a token of respect. Welcome, sirs and ma'ams. It is our pleasure to have you all here with us today. I request the audience to join me in offering a heartfelt welcome to all our esteemed dignitaries. Mahatma Gandhi ji once said, "Even a single lamp dispels the deepest darkness." मैं निवेदन करती हूँ माननीय श्रम एवं रोजगार, युवा कार्य एवं खेल मंत्री भारत सरकार डॉक्टर मनसुख मांडविया जी तथा मंच पर उपस्थित सभी गणमान्यों से कि वे दीप प्रज्वलन कर इस कार्यक्रम का शुभारंभ करें।
शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणं आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणं आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धि विनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोस्तुते दीपज्योतिः परब्रह्म दीपज्योतिर्जनार्दनः दीपज्योतिः परब्रह्म दीपज्योतिर्जनार्दनः।
कर्मचारी राज्य बीमा निगम का प्रतीक चिन्ह प्रज्वलित पंचदीप ESIC की भावना का सच्चा प्रतीक है। ये 5 दीप द्योतक हैं ESIC द्वारा प्रदत्त 5 लाभों के, जो हैं चिकित्सा हित लाभ, बीमारी हित लाभ, मातृत्व हित लाभ, अपंगता हित लाभ व आश्रितजन हित लाभ। इन सभी लाभों द्वारा ESIC भौतिक तथा वित्तीय दोनों प्रकार से निराशा को आशा में बदलकर असंख्य परिवारों के जीवन में रोशनी लाता है। आप सभी का धन्यवाद। I now request the dignitaries to be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to announce that the event is being live streamed on YouTube and across all social media channels of Ministry of Labour and Employment, ESIC and EPFO. I now invite Shri Rupesh Kumar Thakur, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India, to carry forward with the ceremony.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to all of you to the ISSA-ESIC Technical Seminar on Formalization and Social Security Coverage for the Workers in Informal Sector, Challenges and Innovations. It is an absolute honor to gather here today at the prestigious Yashobhoomi, India International Convention and Expo Center, New Delhi, to address such a critical topic. As we embark on the 2-day seminar, we aim to explore innovative approaches and practical solutions for formalizing the informal sector and extending social security coverage to the workers who need it the most. The seminar is hosted by the Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India, and Employees State Insurance Corporation in collaboration with the International Social Security Association. Let us now proceed with the opening remark of our esteemed dignitaries. To start our journey on an impactful note, it is my privilege to invite the Secretary of the Ministry of Labour and Employment to deliver the welcome remark. Ms. Sumita Dawra is an accomplished leader in the public administration and distinguished 1991 batch Indian Administrative Service Officer. She has a career span of more than 30 years, working at a various level of governance in central and the state level, with varied experiences covering labor welfare issues, economic development, logistics, and infrastructure. Madam also has several publications to her credit, including 2 best-selling books on the public policy. Madam, the floor is yours.
Honorable Union Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya ji, Honorable Minister of State, Labour and Employment, Shobha Karandlaje, esteemed President ISSA, Dr. Azman, my colleague DG ESIC Ashok, the Secretary General ISSA and his colleagues, senior officers from international governments, the Government of India, the states and union territories of India, from international organizations, distinguished delegates and participants. I wish you a very warm welcome and a very good morning today here for this technical seminar on formalization and security coverage for workers in the informal sector. What are the challenges and innovations? It is my privilege indeed to be standing here today to welcome all of you as we go forward into our deliberations on the topic. I believe the selection of the theme could not have been more apt. Providing adequate social protection along with decent work, rights and dignities is a challenge world over. The world is facing more complex challenges than ever: rising socioeconomic inequalities, the challenge of rapid technological changes, climate change, demographic changes, etc. These factors impact labor market vulnerabilities, particularly for informal workers, making social security and formalization central for a sustainable and inclusive growth of the global economy. I'm very happy to mention that India is committed to providing adequate social protection and generating quality jobs. It is vital for us that we reap the demographic dividend in the country, as over 65% of our population in India is below the age of 35 years. For ensuring social security to the formal sector in India, we are strengthening the services and expanding the coverage of the workers under the guidance of Honorable Minister, under the Employees Provident Fund Organization, EPFO, and the Employees State Insurance Corporation, ESIC. At the same time, for ensuring social protection to the informal workers, the Government of India has launched a variety of schemes, and the eShram portal, which is a one-stop solution for providing easy access to central and state welfare schemes for over 304 million unorganized workers who are already registered on the eShram portal. We have several initiatives, such as the initiatives taken for welfare of building and construction workers. We have initiatives, policy interventions, such as the One Nation, One Ration Card, that is national portability of benefit for food grains. We have the PM-SIM, a scheme for accidental insurance of the informal workers. We have the Prime Minister's Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, which is for life insurance. Prime Minister's Suraksha Bima Yojana, which is the insurance against sickness and accident. We have PMJ, which is for medical insurance. the Ayushman Bharat scheme, and we have schemes for housing, and we have schemes for microcredit, and so on and so forth. We also have the National Career Service Portal, which is an ambitious initiative of the Government of India, where we align the supply and demand of labor in the market. We also have a very historic budgetary announcement last year on the employment-linked incentive scheme. It's a proposed scheme on an ambitious scale to incentivize quality employment generation and to incentivize first-timers in the labor market. We have labor reforms under the Social Security Code for the unorganized labor and other key initiatives that you will hear more about as we go forward in the discussions. So in this overall context, we will share our perspectives, the progress, the experiences in detail in the technical sessions. I would also request you to visit our kiosks outside for a more personal and interactive experience about all these initiatives of the Government of India. We will cover a range of critical topics across multiple technical sessions. We will deliberate on strategies for formalization and extending social security to informal sector workers, pathways to support vulnerable groups, leveraging digital solutions such as the ones I already mentioned in India, the eShram, the National Career Service Portal. We will be discussing how to leverage digital solutions for more effective outreach and service delivery, and we will be also discussing fostering gender equality in social security. We will talk about innovative approaches, including approaches to cover difficult-to-cover groups through financial incentives. We will discuss about harmonization of data collection and more effective evidence-based policy making. We will delve into various aspects of health and medical care coverage benefits as well. I'm positive that our discussions here will facilitate in gaining new insights, which will facilitate guiding policy and ensure effective and sustainable outcomes. I encourage all of you to proactively engage in the discussions, share your insights, collaborate meaningfully during this seminar. Once again, I welcome you all, and I wish you all a very productive and memorable experience here in New Delhi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for setting the tone of this seminar with your insightful and motivating words. Now I am pleased to introduce the President of International Social Security Association, ISSA, who will share his vision and insights on importance of global collaboration for extending social security coverage. The International Social Security Association, or ISSA, is a leading global organization founded in 1927 under the auspices of International Labour Organization, and it is dedicated to advancing excellence in social security administration. The ISSA has over 320 member institutions across more than 160 countries. Dr. Muhammad Azman, the current president of ISSA, started his career in 1993 as a medical doctor, and with his dedication and hard work, rose to the position of CEO of Perkeso, the Social Security Organization of Malaysia, in year 2015. Dr. Ajam was elected as 17th President of ISSA in 2023. Please join me in welcoming ISSA President.
Honorable Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya, Union Minister of Labour and Employment and Youth Affairs and Sport. Honorable Sushri Shobha, Karandlaje, Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Labour and Employment. Honorable Sumita Dawra, Secretary of Labour and Employment, Ministry of Labour and Employment. Honorable Shri Ashok Kumar Singh, Director General of Employee State Insurance Corporation, ESIC. distinguished representatives from the Ministry of Labour and Employment and the Employers State Insurance Corporation, ESIC, and the Employees Provident Fund Organization, EPFO, representative of international organizations, esteemed colleagues and participants, ladies and gentlemen, namaste, and a very good morning to all of you. It is truly an honor to be here today. I want to begin by expressing my heartfelt thanks to the Ministry of Labour and Employment of India and the Employees State Insurance Corporation, ESIC, for hosting this important technical seminar in New Delhi. Your hospitality and leadership in social security make India the perfect setting for this gathering. I must also commend India for the incredible progress it has made in strengthening social security systems. The Ministry of Labour and Employment, along with ESIC and EPFO, has demonstrated that with commitment and innovation, we can create a more inclusive and robust social security framework. From biometric enrollment system to e-governance platforms, India is setting a global standard in transparency and efficiency, ensuring that benefits reach those who need the most. Notably, the launch of e-Shram portal in 2021 is a significant step forward as India commits to the progressive universalization of social security coverage through the Social Security Code 2020. The e-Shram portal addresses the challenges posed by the large and diverse population, a central state structure, and the growing informality of the workforce, close to 90% of which operates informally. These systems aim to register all informal workers, improve geographic coverage, and provide portable social security and relief measures, especially for migrant workers. Yet, despite these successes, challenges persist. Informal employment remains a defining characteristic of labor markets worldwide. And in India, millions of workers remain outside formal social security systems, leaving them vulnerable and unprotected. This is not just a policy issue, but it is a matter of dignity and justice. It is about ensuring that no worker is left behind, regardless of their status of sector. The theme of today's seminar, Formalization and Social Security Coverage for Workers in the Informal Sector, is more relevant than ever. The work we do here will not only shape the future of social security in India, but across the entire Asia-Pacific region. Together, we have a chance to explore new solutions, learn from one another, and share strategies that can transform lives. Moreover, I'd like to thank the International Labour Organization, ILO, for their vital role in strengthening global social protection systems and their ongoing support for this seminar. As we move forward, let's remember that this seminar is called to action. It is a chance to come together, share knowledge, and reaffirm our commitment to building inclusive, resilient social security systems, a future where no worker is forgotten, no matter their status or sector. I look forward to the important discussion ahead. Thank you, Dhanyawad, for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your inspiring address and for emphasizing the critical role of cooperation in transforming the informal sector and tackling its challenges. It is now my honor to introduce Sushri Shobha Karandlaje, the Honorable Minister of State for Labor and Employment and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Government of India, to address this August gathering. Honorable Minister of State is a Member of Parliament from Bangalore North Constituency, Karnataka, and has previously held key roles such as Minister of State for Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare and the Minister of State for Food Processing Industries in Union Government. While working as Union Minister of State for Agriculture, she has played proactive role in development of farmer-centric policies and tackling the intricate challenges impacting the agricultural community. In her present tenure, the Union Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Sushri Karandlaje, is closely working on the measures to improve the working conditions, financial security, and overall well-being of workers across the country. Madam, please share your thoughts with us.
Respected our Cabinet Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya ji, ISSA President Mr. Mohammad Azman ji, Mrs. Sumita Dawra ji and Ashok Kumar ji, all my friends from different departments, esteemed participants, representatives from international organizations, industry leaders, and media friends. Just now, our minister inaugurated this technical seminar that is formalization and extension of social security for informal workers, challenges and innovations. This is the need of the hour. This international event is organized by our ministry and also in collaboration with the ISSA, ILO, and all the international organizations. Friends, it marks a significant milestone in advancing social protection for informal workers. Our ministry, Honorable Minister Mansukh Mandaviya ji, is fully committed towards promoting and protecting workers and their rights, and also ensuring that the workers are protected from discrimination and exploitation, and they are provided with equal opportunities economically and socially. This is the clear vision of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. He always understands that the role of informal workers, that is unorganized workers, and their contribution in the nation building. He always says the informal workers, the unorganized workers, they are the partners in Vikasit Bharat. Informal workers contribute significantly to our economies, yet they remain disproportionately vulnerable due to the lack of formal employment benefits and social security coverage. It is essential for governments and social security institutions to innovate and work together in creating solutions that effectively address these gaps. We hope that this seminar serves as a platform for sharing knowledge, best practices, and strategies for building inclusive social systems. I am pleased to see prominent international organizations such as World Bank, ILO, United Nations India among with us. Their insights will undoubtedly enrich our deliberations and open up scope for better and comprehensive collaborations across all aspects of our work together for the betterment of informal community. This seminar will explore important themes, including pathways to extend coverage to marginalized and vulnerable groups, leveraging innovations like India's eSham portal to enhance social protection delivery, advancing inclusive systems to empower women, ensure equal access to social security, and strengthening data-driven approaches for transparent and effective implementation. India has made significant strides in extending social protection. Our flagship eSham portal, launched in 2021, has already registered over 300 million unorganized workers in the country. Many of the benefits are given by the Government of India is already mentioned by Sumita Dawra ji. The deliberations during this seminar, especially exchanges of knowledge, will guide us in addressing challenges and embracing innovations that can make our systems more inclusive and sustainable. I am glad that some of the important ministries also participating in this seminar, that is like Finance, External Affairs, Niti Aayog, Health and Family Welfare, Statistics and Program Implementation, along with the industry partners like CIE, FICCI, ASSOCHAM, and NASOCAM. Collaboration between the government, industry, and international organizations is essential to achieving meaningful outcomes. As we embark on this two-day seminar, let us reaffirm our social shared commitment to building equitable and resilient social security systems for all workers. It is our responsibility to extend social security to all agriculture workers, gig workers, and platform workers of our country. Together we can transform the lives of millions, ensuring have a dignity, security, opportunities to rightful deserve. I extend my best wishes to productive discussions for the successful seminar. Thank you all. Thank you all who are coming from different parts of the world and from different organizations. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your encouraging words and commitment to improve social security landscape. Finally, I am delighted to introduce Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya, our Honorable Minister of Labour and Employment and Youth Affairs and Sports. A visionary leader, Dr. Mandaviya is presently a Member of Parliament from Porbandar in Gujarat. Prior to taking charge as Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Mandaviya has also held important positions of Minister of Health and Family Welfare and Minister of Chemicals and Fertilizers. As a Union Minister of Health and Family Welfare, Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya worked relentlessly towards further strengthening health systems at the primary level, secondary level, and tertiary level to build future-ready healthcare system for the new and resilient India. He also spearheaded India's fight against COVID-19 pandemic. Under his able leadership, India carried out the world's largest and most successful COVID-19 vaccination drives with indigenously developed vaccine. Now, as Labour and Employment Minister, Dr. Mandaviya is steering major initiatives designed to enhance social protection, promote skill development, and improve healthcare and safety of the workforce in the country. the launching of eShram as one-stop solution in October 2024 for the informal sector workers to have access to various social sector schemes is one of such initiatives which would facilitate targeted delivery of the welfare schemes to them. Honorable Minister is the driving force behind the future vision of ESIC through efforts such as convergence with Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana and establishment of 10 new medical colleges, which would go a long way in ensuring seamless medical care for the workforce of the country. Charting a challenging and fulfilling journey from being a young leader to a cabinet minister, he has been committed to serve the nation in all his endeavors. Now it is my pleasure, it is my honor to invite Honorable Minister to inspire us with his insights. Sir.
इंटरनेशनल सोशल सिक्योरिटी एसोसिएशन एवं ASIC के द्वारा आयोजित 2 दिन की कॉन्फ्रेंस में हमारे बीच में उपस्थित मेरी सहयोगी मंत्री शोभा जी, आज हमारे बीच विशेष उपस्थित ISSA के प्रेसिडेंट डॉक्टर मोहम्मद अजमन जी, सेक्रेटरी लेबर एंड एम्प्लॉयमेंट सुमिता जी, अशोक जी, सभी उपस्थित पार्टिसिपेंट भाइयों बहनों। दोस्तों, आज ये 2 दिन का सेमिनार यानी कि कॉन्फ्रेंस मेरे लिए महत्वपूर्ण इसलिए है कि सोशल सिक्योरिटी देश और दुनिया के सामान्य जन को मिले और वो भी अपनी प्राइमरी रिक्वायरमेंट उसको उपलब्ध हो और अपना जीवन को आसानी से व्यतीत कर सके, किसी पर उसकी डिपेंडेंसी ना रहे और मानवीय मूल्य के आधार पर उसका जीवन निर्वाह हो सके, सुनिश्चित करना ये ILO के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बाद चालू हुआ ऐसा नहीं है। ये सदियों से चलते आ रहे क्रम है और इतिहास में 2000 साल पहले इस देश की धरती पर पैदा हुए आचार्य चाणक्य की नीति शास्त्र के साथ आप इस विषय को जोड़ेंगे तो उन्होंने भी उस वक्त देश की इकोनॉमी कैसी होनी चाहिए, देश की सोसाइटी कैसी होनी चाहिए और आदर्श राज्य व्यवस्था कैसी होनी चाहिए, उस पर अपना विचार रखते हुए कहा है कि लास्ट तबक्के के लोग जो पॉवर्टी लाइन के नीचे अपना जीवन व्यतीत कर रहे हैं, उसका सम्मानपूर्वक जीवन मिले, उसके लिए राज्य को सुनिश्चितता करनी चाहिए। बदलते समय के साथ परिप्रेक्ष्य बदलते गए और वर्तमान में हम उसको इनफॉर्मल वर्कर्स, फॉर्मल वर्कर्स, गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉइज के रूप में देखते हैं और वहाँ भी देश के सभी नागरिक को वर्कर्स, फॉर्मल, इनफॉर्मल, उसकी भी एक डिफिनेशन ILO के मुताबिक हो सकती है, लेकिन मैं उसमें और एक स्टेप आगे बढ़ के बोल सकता हूं कि सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट, स्वरोजगार, कई छोटे तबक्के के लोग हैं स्वरोजगार के लिए छोटे काम करते हैं, छोटा कारोबार करते हैं, उसकी इनकम बहुत कम हो, उसकी भी सोशल सिक्योरिटी के लिए उनके लिए भी विचार हो, ये बहुत आवश्यक है। और आज आप मुझे बताया गया कि 16 कंट्री के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स यहां पर हैं। 2 दिन तक डिस्कशन करेंगे, अपने अपने कंट्री में जो बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस हो रही है, ये बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस का अध्ययन करेंगे, शेयर करेंगे। उसमें से कई अच्छी चीज भी निकल के आएगी, ऐसी मैं अपेक्षा करता हूं, क्योंकि हर कंट्री अपने अपने मॉडल के अनुसार सोशल सिक्योरिटी के लिए प्रयास करती है। अब जानते हैं इंडिया एक बहुत बड़ी कंट्री है, विशाल कंट्री है। इंडिया इज ए बिग कंट्री, ह्यूज डाइवर्सिटी, 1.4 बिलियन पॉपुलेशन। और ये स्थिति में सरकार ने जो प्रयास करा है सोशल सिक्योरिटी के लिए, मैं मानता हूं कि पिछले 1 दशक में दुनिया में कोई कंट्री में प्रयास नहीं हुआ होगा जो प्रयास इस देश में हुआ है। और सोशल सिक्योरिटी को किसको कहेंगे? हेल्थ सिक्योरिटी, पेंशन सिक्योरिटी, लाइवलीहुड सिक्योरिटी, फूड सिक्योरिटी, ऑल टाइप ऑफ सिक्योरिटी के परिप्रेक्ष्य में भी जो इंडिया में काम हुआ है। आज 6 इन इंडिया में 60 करोड़ लोग हेल्थ सिक्योरिटी के अंडर है। 5 लाख रुपीस तक मुफ्त इलाज दिया जाता है, एकदम पारदर्शिता के अनुसार दिया जाता है। आप आयुष्मान भारत योजना के लाभार्थी हैं। आप आयुष्मान भारत योजना के साथ जुड़ी हुई कोई भी प्राइवेट या गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल जो 24,000 से अबव है, देश की 24,000 अबव कोई भी अस्पताल में आप चले जाएंगे, कोई भी स्टेट के आप क्यों ना हो, लेकिन आपको एक्सेस है, वहां आप इलाज करवा सकते हो। एक कंट्री से दूसरी कंट्री में आपको जाना है और नियरेस्ट कंट्री कई बार ट्रीटमेंट के लिए मेडिकल टूरिज्म के हिसाब से इंडिया में आते हैं। हो केरला के कोई इंडियन सिटीजन हो, दिल्ली में है और यहाँ वो मजदूरी करता है, इनफॉर्मल लेबर के रूप में काम करता हो, और उसको हार्ट का प्रॉब्लम हुआ, ऑपरेशन करना है, वो दिल्ली में ऑपरेशन कर सकता है। यहाँ से नॉर्थ ईस्ट 3000 किलोमीटर फार फ्रॉम हियर, वहाँ की कोई अस्पताल में उसको इलाज करना है और दिल्ली के सिटीजन है, वहाँ उसको इलाज मिल सकता है। इस टाइप की हेल्थ सिक्योरिटी इंडिया में 600 मिलियन पॉपुलेशन को दी गई है। ये इंडिया है जहां 800 मिलियन पॉपुलेशन को फूड सिक्योरिटी कवरेज में लाया गया है। कई कंट्री को इकट्ठा करे और उसका पॉपुलेशन होता है, इतने लोगों को हम फूड सिक्योरिटी प्रोवाइड करते हैं। पर सिटीजन 5 kg फूड ग्रेन्स उसको मुफ्त दिया जाता है, ताकि देश में, इतने बड़े देश में, कोई गरीब व्यक्ति को भूखे सोने की नौबत ना आए। हमारे इनफॉर्मल एम्प्लॉयज है, ये वे सब लोगों को इस योजना का लाभ मिल रहा है। और इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर में काम करने वाले लोग, बिल्डिंग एंड कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स के रूप में काम करता हो, और अलग अलग छोटे छोटे सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट के आधार पर अपनी आजीविका को चलाते हो। हमने ई श्रम पोर्टल इसलिए डेवलप करा है जिसमें 300 एबव ऐसे इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर के लोग हैं जो उसके ऊपर रजिस्टर है, और इस सभी को कोई ना कोई सोशल सिक्योरिटी का लाभ मिलता है। और जिसको लाभ नहीं मिल रहा है उसको हम कैसे कवरेज में लाए, उसके लिए हमने कार्य योजना बनाना चालू करा है, ताकि देश के कोई नागरिक अपने प्राथमिक जीवन के लिए उसको संघर्ष करने की नौबत ना आए। एक समय था देश में प्रतिवर्ष 5 करोड़ लोग केवल हेल्थ के खर्च बढ़ जाने से, बड़ी बीमारी आ जाने से उसके घर में ज़्यादा खर्च हो जाता था, उसको शाहूकार से पैसा लेके खर्च करना पड़ता था। और वो स्वयं बिलो पॉवर्टी लाइन के नीचे चले जाते थे। लास्ट 10 years में ड्यूरिंग आवर गवर्नमेंट, मोदी गवर्नमेंट, 25 करोड़ लोग, यानी कि 250 मिलियन पॉपुलेशन बिलो पॉवर्टी लाइन से ऊपर आए हैं। रीजन है सोशल सिक्योरिटी। ये सोशल सिक्योरिटी प्रोवाइड करने से आज भी ILO के मुताबिक हम कहें तो सोशल सिक्योरिटी का कवरेज एक दशक पहले 24% था, नाउ एंड टुडे 48% है। और उसमें फूड सिक्योरिटी इंक्लूड नहीं करी गई है। ये फूड सिक्योरिटी को इंक्लूड करा जाए तो वो कवरेज 68% हो जाएगा। इतने बड़े देश में ये छोटी बात नहीं है, ये बहुत बड़ी उपलब्धि है। और ये संभव इसलिए हो रहा है कि इंडिया बहुत तेजी से इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ, GDP ग्रोथ इंडिया का बढ़ रहा है। जब इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ बढ़ता है उसका मतलब ये होता है कि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर का ग्रोथ होता है, एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर का ग्रोथ होता है, सर्विस सेक्टर का ग्रोथ होता है, IT सेक्टर का ग्रोथ होता है। इस सभी सेक्टर का ग्रोथ होता है, उससे इकोनॉमी जनरेट होती है और इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ होता है। आज 6.578% के रेट से इंडिया की इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ हो रही है, यानी कि परचेज पावर बढ़ रहा है। जब कोई देश का परचेज पावर बढ़ता है तो कंजप्शन बढ़ता है, और जब कंजप्शन बढ़ता है तो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बढ़ता है। तो आज 6.87% से इंडिया का इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ हो रहा है। उसका एक नतीजा है कि इंडियन गवर्नमेंट आज GST के द्वारा देश की इनकम भी बढ़ रही है। तब जाके एक गुड गवर्नेंस के आधार पर सिस्टमाइज वे में हम मैनेजमेंट कर रहे हैं ताकि सोशल सिक्योरिटी देने में हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। अभी कई सेक्टर है और वर्क पार्टिसिपेशन रेशियो भी बढ़ रहा है। और नॉट ओनली फॉर हम सिंगल वे में चलते हैं लेकिन कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव वे में। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, देश में आज 630 मिलियन पीपल्स वर्कफोर्स में है। पहले महिलाओं की भागीदारी बहुत कम थी। आज महिलाओं के पहले एक दशक पहले 22% वर्कफोर्स पार्टिसिपेशन में महिलाओं का रेशियो 22% था। आज वो बढ़ के 44% है और आगे बढ़ेंगे क्योंकि उसके लिए अपॉर्चुनिटी ओपन हो रही है। देश में कारोबार बढ़े, इंडस्ट्रियल डेवलपमेंट हो, रोजगार निर्माण हो, उसके लिए जो सरकार ने एफर्ट लिया है, ये एफर्ट का नतीजा है हमने 4 लेबर कोड देश में हमारी पार्लियामेंट ने पारित करा है, जो अलग ब्रिटिश टाइम के और उनके बाद का 26 अलग हमारे एक्ट थे उसको रिपील करके 4 कोड में कन्वर्ट करा है। इंडिया की डाइवर्सिटी, इंडिया इज ए डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री एंड फेडरल डेमोक्रेसी। हमारी फेडरल डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम है। कई पावर स्टेट को है, कई पावर सेंट्रल को है, लेकिन स्टेट और सेंट्रल आपस में डिस्कशन, डेलिब्रेशन, कंसल्टेशन के आधार पर हम देश में लेबर सेक्टर, एम्प्लॉयमेंट सेक्टर को सुनिश्चित करने के लिए प्रयास कर रहे हैं, जिसमें इंडस्ट्रियल ग्रोथ भी हो और लेबर के हित की रक्षा भी हो। और इसलिए जिस तरह से देश में हम बदलाव देख रहे हैं, देश में मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर में जिस तरह से FDI आ रही है, इंडिया स्वयं बहुत बड़ा मार्केट के रूप में उभर रहा है। और इतना बड़ा मार्केट जब इंडिया स्वयं, देश स्वयं है, तो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग उसके लिए महत्वपूर्ण हो जाता है। नहीं केवल देश के लिए बट ग्लोबलाइजेशन के समय में फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट से हम दुनिया के साथ जुड़े हुए हैं, WTO के साथ हम दुनिया के साथ जुड़े हुए हैं, तब हम दुनिया में पैदा हुआ माल इंडिया में आए, इंडिया में पैदा हुआ माल दुनिया में जाए, उसको हम ज़्यादा रिस्ट्रिक्ट नहीं कर सकते हैं। वैसी स्थिति में इंडिया के मार्केट को एसेस करके दुनिया की मल्टीनेशनल कंपनी के लिए इंडिया इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए बेस्ट डेस्टिनेशन के रूप में उभरा है, क्योंकि ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस में हमारी रैंक में हमने इंप्रूवमेंट करा है। एक दशक पहले हमें ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस में हमारी रैंक 140 थी, आज 63 रैंक पर हम पहुंचे हैं। और जब नए रिपोर्ट, जब मुझे इनफॉर्मल इंफॉर्मेशन मिली है, जिस तरह से हमने इंप्रूवमेंट करा है और आगे बढ़ेंगे। ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस में हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। मल्टीनेशनल कंपनी इंडिया में इन्वेस्टमेंट की ओर आगे बढ़ रही है। इंडियन मल्टीनेशनल कंपनी, एक समय था जब FDI आती थी तब कुछ होता था, जी नहीं, समय बदला है। देश में एंटरप्रेन्योर्स बढ़ रहे हैं, स्टार्टअप बढ़ रहे हैं। इंडियन कंपनी ग्लोबल कंपनी बनने जा रही है, मल्टीनेशनल कंपनी बनने जा रही है। ये सब लोग फॉर्मल और इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर में एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेट करते हैं। और इसलिए आज आप यहाँ 2 दिन में जो डिबेट डिस्कशन करेंगे उसमें दुनिया की बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस क्या है, कैसे करते हैं, इंडिया कैसे बदल रहा है। दोस्तों, कई चीजें ऐसी है जो असंभव जैसी लगती थी, लेकिन अब संभव हुई है। मुझे पता है 1 दशक पहले जब मैं 2012 में पार्लियामेंट में आया था और मैंने उस वक्त की गवर्नमेंट का बजट देखा था, और 2012 का बजट शायद 1,20,000 करोड़ रुपया इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का बजट था। 2014 में 2,40,000 करोड़ का मोदी गवर्नमेंट का पहला इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का पीछे बजट था। दोस्तों, आज 11.5 लाख करोड़ का लास्ट ईयर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का बजट था, और ये बजट को 15 लाख करोड़ तक ले जाना है। जब 15 लाख करोड़ रुपया इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के पीछे गवर्नमेंट इन्वेस्ट करेगी कंटिन्यूस 25 साल तक, तब जाके इंडिया डेवलप्ड कंट्री बनेगा। और आवर प्राइम मिनिस्टर का गोल है कि जब देश आज़ादी का शताब्दी वर्ष मनाता हो, यानी कि 100 ईयर्स सेलिब्रेट करते हो, उस वक्त हमें देश को डेवलप्ड कंट्री बनाना है। जब डेवलप्ड कंट्री बनाने के लिए इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फर्स्ट प्रायोरिटी होती है। आप जब यशोभूमि परिसर में बैठे हैं, ये भी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का एक बेस्ट एग्जाम्पल ही है। मैं दुनिया के कई कंट्री में गया हूँ। लास्ट 10 ईयर्स माई सेल्फ इज इन गवर्नमेंट। मैंने दुनिया का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर भी देखा है। आप भारत मंडपम में जाइए, इट्स इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड का बेस्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है। आज देश के कई सिटी में ऐसे बेस्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर देश में बने हैं। आज ट्रेन, बुलेट ट्रेन, मेट्रो ट्रेन बेस्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का एग्जाम्पल है। दोस्तों, ये देश बहुत कुछ कर सकता है। एक समय था, एक दिन में 10 किलोमीटर नेशनल हाईवे बनते थे। डेवलप्ड कंट्री ने भी अपने डेवलपिंग पीरियड के दरमियान मैक्सिमम एक दिन में एवरेज 20 किलोमीटर नेशनल हाईवे बनाया है। हम इस देश के नागरिक हैं जिस देश ने एक दिन में एवरेज 35 किलोमीटर नेशनल हाईवे बना के आज आगे बढ़ रहा है। जब इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सेक्टर में इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ता है, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर में इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ता है, सनराइजिंग सेक्टर में यूथ आगे बढ़ते हैं, तब एम्प्लॉयमेंट की ह्यूज अपॉर्चुनिटी भी उपलब्ध होती है। और एम्प्लॉयमेंट की अपॉर्चुनिटी के साथ सोशल सिक्योरिटी को कनेक्ट करना है। गिग वर्कर्स आज देश और दुनिया के लिए एक न्यू वर्कफोर्स है। उसको हम कैसे सोशल सिक्योरिटी दे? हमने हमारे लेबर कोड में गिग वर्कर्स के लिए और गिग वर्कर्स की डिफिनेशन भी आइडेंटिफाई करी है और शॉर्ट टाइम में ही हम गिग वर्कर्स को सोशल सिक्योरिटी के अंदर लेके आएंगे, जो देश में आज 7 और 8 मिलियन से अबव उसकी संख्या हो चुकी है। जो सेक्टर में नया सेक्टर है, राइजिंग सेक्टर है, सनराइजिंग सेक्टर है, उसको भी आइडेंटिफाई करके इस सेक्टर में काम करने के लिए भी भारत ने ऑलरेडी पहल चालू कर दी है। मैं अपेक्षा करता हूँ कि आपके 2 दिन के डिस्कशन में ये भी एक विषय रहे और उसमें से जो भी आउटपुट निकले उसके पर हम जॉइंटली एफर्ट करके देश और दुनिया को बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस दे पाएंगे। आप सब इस सेमिनार में पार्टिसिपेंट करने के लिए आए हैं। आप सबको मेरी शुभकामनाएं। धन्यवाद।
Thank you very much, sir, for your visionary address. Your guidance and leadership are invaluable to the success of this seminar. Now, with this, we conclude the welcome ceremony. Now, we invite all of you to join us for a networking coffee break. This is an excellent opportunity to connect with the fellow participants and speakers. And we will reconvene here at 11:30 for the first technical session. Thank you very much.
themes are formalization and social security coverage, digital transformation, gender equality and empowerment, data collection and reporting. So now coming to the first technical session of this seminar, two-day seminar. The first session is on formalization and social security coverage, opportunities, challenges, and strategies. This session will explore labor market developments in the region and will highlight the factors that make social security coverage for informal sector workers challenging. It will also present international strategies and comprehensive national policy approaches that set the framework for institutional innovations. The moderator for this session is Mr. Marcelo Abiramia Catano. Mr. Catano is the Secretary General of International Social Security Association. He has contributed extensively to strengthen ISSA knowledge, networking, and promotion of social security. I welcome you, sir, on the stage. I now hand over the mic to Dr. Catano to introduce our speakers for this session and carry forward the session.
So, very good morning to everybody. So these sessions, we are starting the first technical session of this event that gives more a general overview, either from an international organization's perspective and more from a national Indian perspective, for these major topics of the events, as we are seeing, the formalization and social security coverage. So we will have three speakers, one from the ILO, one from ISSA, and one from the Employees State Insurance Corporation that is hosting this event. So I will call to the stage from the ILO Mariko Uchi. So Mariko Uchi, please come. She is Senior Technical Specialist on Social Protection from the ILO, so thank you very much. Also, I'm calling to the stage Shea McCallan. Shea, she's Senior Official Senior Officer in Social Security and Social Policy from ISSA, and also our host, so Mr. Ashok Kumar Singh. He is Director General of the Employees State Insurance Corporation in India. So I will be controlling the time. So let's give first the speaker. The first speaker will be Mrs. Mariko Uch from the ILO. So please, the floor is yours. We have at about 15 minutes to speak. Okay, I'll be controlling the time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for a very kind invitation sent to the ILO for this wonderful event, and for the organizers, Ministry of Labor and Employment, of course ISSA, and then ESIC jointly. And I'm very glad to have this opportunity to join this event and then make some presentation to represent the ILO views on the formalization of social security coverage issues, opportunities, challenges, and strategies. First, very important to mention that the Asia-Pacific region is a home to 1.3 billion informal workers of the world out of 2 billion informal workers. And as you see from this map, as you see that this red part is a very high density of informal workers residing, and then as you see that the Asia-Pacific region is quite in red. It's very important to mention about the definition, how informality is defined. According to the recommendation, ILO recommendation number 204, ILO transition from the informal to the formal economy, which was adopted in 2015, the term informal economy refers to all economic activities by workers and economic unit that are in law or in practice not covered or insufficiently covered by formal arrangements. There are some terminologies coming up: informal economy, informal employment, informal sector. Informal economy comprises both enterprises and employment, whereas informal employment is more worker-based concept, whereas the informal sector is more aligning to the enterprise-based concept. So how to extend social protection to informal workers? Economic growth is essential for employment creation. However, economic growth is not sufficient condition to achieve the employment creation to cover informal workers and then facilitate transition from informal to formal employment. There are several points listed here. First, challenges for policymakers due to the growth of formal employment is insufficient to absorb the new entrants and those in informal employment. So there are informal workers, informal employment and informal workers already there. But however, particularly in these South Asian regions, there are new entrants. Countries are still young, and then population growth is still high, and then labor market has to absorb a number of new entrants, and for those who has a danger to fall into informal employment. Second, in many countries, the rate of informal employment, informal sector is growing. Very important to mention that the shape of informal employment is becoming complex. And it's not just the so-called typical form of informal employment seen as a street vendors, for example. They can be the informal workers. However, it's not only like that. There are some cases that enterprise can be formal, but enterprise have both formal and informal employment in one entity, which has been observed not only in developed countries, but also in some of the mid-income countries, like, for example, in Eastern Europe. Also, it's important to mention the challenge of the extension of the informal workers in a new form of work, and which is related to the next point, that policy and regulatory framework needs to adapt to new forms of work and new business models, which are increasingly become important part of national economic growth. And in case of India, currently the discussion on extending social protection to platform workers is still going on, and which is one of the typical new form of work. And from the standard point of view, ILO has a recommendation of transition from informal to formal economy, recommendation number 204, which is calling for integrated approaches that tackle the root causes and the diversity of the informal economy. There are many drivers for informality, and then it's important to segregate by the levels of the economy, from macro, meso, micro, and then in case of micro for the workers level, micro as an enterprise level. As you see that there are different drivers to be seen and then affecting to the disturbing factors for extending social protection to informal workers. For example, seeing from the macro point of view, lack of infrastructure can be the one, and the meso level, lack of adequate social security benefit, as it's seen in green, is one of the main drivers for informality. And also at micro workers level, enterprise level, there are different type of drivers for informality identified. As it has been mentioned already, that the effective strategies to tackle the multiple drivers is is supposed to be approached from the integral manner, as an integrated approach. Excuse me. So what are the integrated approach? Unfortunately, this center in the yellow is actually the social protection policies, but it's written in white, so it's not 100% visible, might be, but the most important one is in the center. So this is the nature, what are the nature of an integrated approach? As I said that level of intervention needs to be divided at the different level, macro level, meso level, and micro level. Whereas that the policy areas of integrated framework, which can be considered as a so-called horizontal dimension of integration, has a different type of policies. For example, tax policies, employment and job creation, business and investment environment, social protection policies also as one of the integrated approach to be followed, labor protection policies, fundamental principles and right at work, rural development policies, and other policy areas. There are substantial coverage gaps and underinvestment in social protection, which constrains the social and economic development. Actually, it says that only 46.9% of the global population are protected at least one area, and then actually this is previous World Social Protection Report data, and currently the over 50%, 52.4% of the global population are protected in at least one area, which under this SDG indicator 1.3.1. And then, which has been substantially increased from the data in 2015, which was only 42.8%. It's very important to mention about the remarkable progress of the Indian data Indian statistical data in terms of social protection protected in at least one area, which has increased from 24% in the previous World Social Protection Report to 48%. There are mainly two factors positively affecting to this increase. First one is the inclusion of PM Poshan scheme, and then second one is the inclusion of the central schemes which are applicable to based on the methodology of SDG 1.3.1. Both of them, according to Geneva colleagues, both of them affected 10% each of the increase of this data. And of course that the increase of the Indian data in India would substantially affect positively to the statistical data of not only to the Asia Pacific region, but also it affects certainly in certain extent to the global statistics because of the number of the population, large population, which is existing in India. And then going back to the discussion of the positive economic impacts of investment in social protection, there are, again, like three levels defined, micro level, meso level, and macro level. It's at the micro level, positivity would be found in improvement of the health, nutrition, and educational outcome, and increase
5
of
minutes.
Increase of employability. Whereas at the meso level, some community asset and infrastructure to be built. Macro level, stabilization of aggregated demand, facilitating structural change, and positive poverty alleviation to be achieved. how the social protection can be extended, social protection can be extended, and the coverage. There are several aspects which has been defined in this picture. So the aspects wise, there is a legal aspect, there is a social protection scheme design aspect, social protection financing aspect, administrative and governance aspect, which ISSA has been supporting substantially, I think, all over the world, and communication aspect, compliance aspect, and representation of voice aspect, which is very important from the ILO point of view, supporting the tripartism as a core mandate. Then extending social protection to those who are not yet covered and promoting transition from informal to formal economy. There are two main flagship convention on, not convention, international labor standards related to social protection, which is Convention 102, Minimum Standards of Social Security Convention, and Recommendation 202, which is a social protection floors convention. In addition, as I mentioned, that there is a Recommendation 204, transition from the informal to the formal economy recommendation to be very much relevant to this issue, to this discussion. How social protection can be extended to informal workers? It's necessary to see from the in a different timeline, because in order to achieve sustainable extension to informal workers, of course, formalization of informal employment is a key to success. However, it cannot be achieved in tomorrow. So in this sense that it's necessary to build some of the measures which is applicable in a short mid-term time span, whereas that in a long-term time span, it will be necessary to see how the sustainable social security system or social protection system to be built while formalization of informal employment to be achieved. 2 points to be mentioned for the measures in short and mid-term span. Short-term span-wise, that non-contributory scheme to such as tax-based financing or some other non-contributory finance mechanism to be applied for the extension of social protection to informal workers. Whereas that a little bit in a mid-term span, it will be possible to adapt the innovative social insurance mechanism to be built to cover informal workers while formalization effort to be made. I think I'm going to touch upon just quickly how to accelerate the extension of social protection to those who are not yet covered. There are several principles: universality of social protection, adequacy to be met, adequacy to be mentioned particularly in Convention 102, portability and transferability, which is very relevant in case of India, not only for the international portability issues, but also the domestic portability of social security issues, transparency, gender equality, and good governance and trust. Formulating strategies for the extension of coverage. There are step-by-step approach to be applied. First, the diagnostic study to be done.
Could you go to the concluding?
Yeah, okay. First, diagnostic study to be done, and then policy review and policy to be applied, priority setting to be done, development of integrated policy framework to be made together with implementation, and then monitoring to be conducted. Then it comes back again after monitoring and then review to be done. Then there is a study, if it's necessary, to be conducted, and then priority setting to be adjusted. So it's a kind of the circle to continue the formalization strategies. And then it's very important to mention that integrated policy is a key of key of success to enhance decent work, and resilience and social justice. I need to finish, and then I think I'm going to go to the final slides. What we have learned in the Asia Pacific experience. First, implement integrated approach to formalization progressively and start with a simple step, multi-sectoral working groups. Second, if measures for all sectors are not feasible, then why not to start with specific sectors or the group of workers? Third, very important to mention that each country have a different entry point, and then India has its own specifics, and then it has its own entry point, along with a policy discussion. And then it's necessary to grab this work, engage into this, based on this good entry point, which has been discussing. For example, in case of India, at the moment, social protection to platform workers can be one of the very important entry point. Evidence-based policy making for formalization is essential. So-called balanced approach combining incentives with compliance is needed for sustained progress. Last but not least, map and monitor formalization outcome is very much important to reflect all the lessons learned, and then to bring all the learnings for the next round of policy discussion. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Mariko Uchi, who is Senior Technical Specialist on Social Protection, giving the ILO perspectives on expansion of coverage. So I'm calling Shay to give the ISSA perspective. So Shay McCullen, she is Senior Officer in Social Security and Social Policy in ISSA. So Shay, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Marcelo, and thank you to our hosts at ESIC. It's an honor to be among the distinguished morning panel this morning. And I'm really happy with what Mariko presented, because I think in my presentation, this will be sort of, as Marcelo said, the ISSA perspective, but also complementing much of what was said by the ILO, and maybe in some cases visualizing what that means in your context. So hopefully the tools that we go through today will help you with some of that. Just a quick overview, we'll be looking at informality and Social Security, reviewing some of the basic concepts that have been presented already, going a bit deeper on some. Also looking at some of the strategic and programmatic dimensions, a bit, if we have time, on the administrative and governance dimensions, although that's what the focus of the next 2 days are, so I'll leave that mostly to you. And then finally, bringing it all together. So to start with linking Social Security and informality, I think the overall picture, as Mariko said, globally around 60% of the global workforce is working informally. She mentioned that in Asia Pacific, this is quite, you have a high intensity of informality. The map on the right shows this large variation around the world. It can range from anywhere from 10% to upwards of 90% in much of sub-Saharan Africa. Incredible diversity around the world, but I think what all of these places have in common, and what all workers who are working informally have in common, is a lack of Social Security. So again, as Mariko pointed out, this is actually the lack of access to formal protections is embedded in the global statistical definition of informality. So because we're interested in this dimension, the focus tends to be on informal employment. It's built into the definition, though, is also a measure of economic units. And actually, when we come to discussing formalization in Social Security context, both dimensions are actually quite necessary, as you who are on the front lines know very, very well. And in other words, it's possible to be formally employed in a formally registered enterprise. We know this. This gets attention, undeclared workers. But I want to point out another phenomenon that's increasing globally, and that is that it's also possible to be technically a registered enterprise and working in an unregistered company. So you as an individual increasingly might be registered as a registered enterprise, but still lacking in Social Security coverage. So effectively, by definition, you are still informally employed. So I think this is a phenomenon that we need to pay a bit more attention to globally and in different national contexts, especially where special solutions and special tax regimes are emerging. So it was mentioned that informality is growing in many contexts, but I think despite common perceptions, informality is not inevitable. And in fact, it's not increasing everywhere. And it's not even increasing on average globally. It's actually been gradually decreasing, although not as quickly as many of us would like. The graph here is from a resource that I hope you'll consult after this, which is the ILO's new informality dashboard. It tracks changes in rates of global informal employment in national contexts. Not all of the data that you've provided to ILO is yet uploaded into the national dashboard. In particular, India is missing. So eventually it will get there, and please watch that space. But if you look at the graph, what the graph is showing is changes in the rates of formal employment for different countries over time. So it's starting from T1, which is the horizontal axis that you'll see, and going to T2, which is the vertical axis that you'll see. And the dots, essentially, the dots above the line are countries that have made progress on formalization, and those below the line have regressed over time. So those that are on the line, of course, there's been no change. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of these, or a few of these countries, so that we can see some of the performers. We can see France there went from 73% in 2010 all the way to 96% in 2020. So progress is not limited to low and middle income countries. It's also happening in high income countries where it's also a priority. Uruguay, Turkey, Mauritius, Colombia, Thailand, now Vietnam. Now those of us who follow these issues actually will see something, a pattern in those names that are mentioned, because those names of those countries that have been making progress on formalization have also been countries that have been putting Social Security at the front of those efforts. So those are Social Security, high investment, and leading countries as well. So historically, Social Security has been seen as a passive byproduct of formalization too often. So if you're lucky enough to have a contract and a compliant employer, then Social Security will follow. But increasingly, with technological advancements, but also with changes in labor markets, we're seeing Social Security as a much more proactive and even indispensable partner. So where they are taking the lead, Social Security organizations and Social Security systems, they're able to break the cycle, the vicious cycle of informality, and create a virtuous one. So instead of focusing only on registration, though it is vital, we often start here at the bottom, starting with increased registration of enterprises in particular, it's also important to think more critically about the system itself, thinking about the Social Security system, thinking about investing in the demand side to make sure that it's reaching its potential to support growth and contributory capacity, but also employment generation. So an interesting aside maybe for this audience, and going back to something I mentioned earlier, the ILO last year came up with some research that found that technology can reduce the shadow economy, and does reduce the shadow economy, in particular by bringing transactions into the open. But it also found that the impact on informal employment is less clear. So what we're talking about, real access to Social Security. And I think that's important for us thinking about, special unified tax regimes that have grown up and that are very, very important for simplifying registration Social Security. But we also need to think about risks as well as the potential in these kinds of initiatives. So when and how can Social Security make a difference? Now, you'll recognize these same drivers as the ones that Mariko spent some time on, and I'm just going to present them in a slightly different way because the diagram depicts that ILO analysis of what the drivers of informality are, which they group into these macro, regulatory, micro, and then also attractiveness of informality as another dimension. Even though Social Security and social protection don't get a prominent starring role in that picture, at least not as far as I think they should, those of us that work know well that Social Security actually operates in lots of these dimensions, not just a specific line that says social protection, but in fact, it operates along the regulatory dimension in terms of registration, administration. It operates on actually changing the micro-level determinants, the actual characteristics of workers themselves in terms of income and wages, and of enterprises and their performance. So you'll see Social Security, I think, playing a much more important role across all of these dimensions. And if it does it effectively, then we also see it having impacts at the macro level in terms of growth. So the next part of the presentation, I'm going to draw on inspiration from the ISSA guidelines. Those of you, you're ISSA members, so hopefully you'll be familiar with the ISSA administrative guidelines on the solution, or administrative solutions to coverage extension. And in particular, I'll draw your attention to this part C, which is covering the missing middle, and I'll be referring a little bit to some of these guidelines, but they're essentially for your consultation just after this. So one thing that I want to start with is the importance of good diagnostics. So first things first, and I think Mariko also mentioned this, but maybe to visualize a bit more what we mean. The guidelines on covering the missing middle usefully remind us that it's important to understand the context before we devise solutions. And often you're needing to provide real-time solutions and real-time options to policymakers. And it's really important that you don't skip the step of diagnostics. So just take an example here of what can go wrong if we do skip that step. I've been involved by now in a lot of national dialogues and reform processes in coverage extension. And one aspect that gets, I believe, surprisingly little attention in these debates is contributory capacity. So the graph shows ILO data on the share of the working population. That is the share of the population that is in work who live in poverty. And this is just a selection of countries that I pulled from last year's data. And it's comparing that to the World Bank's international poverty lines below USD 215 or 365 a day. And I do believe in being ambitious. Man's reach should always exceed his grasp, but I'm also a realist. I'm a fan of reality, and reality strongly suggests that everyone who's working does not have the ability to contribute. There are large numbers of poor people who are on very low incomes, and I should say, in fact, that if we use the lines that are used for upper middle and high income countries, that are a lot of the countries also in the Asia-Pacific region, we'd actually see much larger shares of vulnerable workers. So we do have to keep that in mind. What does it mean? It doesn't mean we don't try. It just means that we set our targets appropriately, we understand the income, and we understand the wage profiles of the working population, the potential impacts of contributions on them, and then we make adjustments when necessary. So in addition to affordability on the demand side, we have to pay attention to employment status. It makes a big difference for formalization and extension if we're talking about self-employed workers versus employees. Dependent employees, historically, the conventional wisdom is that it's been easier to cover them, though this is changing. We won't go into details, but just to point that out. Also, with self-employed, we've known for a long time that it requires much more nuanced approaches. It's maybe less about compliance, more about incentives, more about affordability. Contributions are typically much higher for self-employed workers because they take into account the employer and the employee portion. But also benefits tend to be less equal. So even if you've paid more to be in Social Security, you might actually get less because of legal exclusions, but also because of effective exclusions. So those are due to high administrative difficulties in reaching the self-employed on both sides. And note here we're focused on employment status, but other labor market characteristics matter. The intensity of employment, part-time versus full-time, demographic characteristics, especially age and gender. Diagnostics matter. On the supply side, as well as understanding the population's profile and need, it's also important to understand the whole of what the Social Security system provides. Its relevance, its scope, its quality. Are the benefits attractive? Are they adequate? Are they comprehensive? One of the best ways to decrease the attractiveness of informality is to increase the attractiveness of formality. So if we think about a life cycle-based system that provides comprehensive protection from childhood through to old age, we ask ourselves questions. Are the pensions providing regular and adequate social income security? Are they acknowledging and mitigating labor market inequalities and their expression in pension outcomes? In working age, which is especially important in young populations, like here in India, but also in other places around the region, are the working age benefits actually relevant to the people who are in working age right now? Can they access them? Are they related to their needs? In childhood, are we giving all children a healthy start, a good start in life? But it's not enough to just make a checklist of benefits, which is often where conversations stop. It's also important to see how these benefits are working together. The graph here on the left is a typical representation of the programmatic fragmentation that's seen in many low and middle income countries. I won't take too much time with this, but along the x-axis is essentially mapping the degree of attachment to the labor market, which is correlated with income level, although not perfectly. And on the y-axis, we're looking at income from Social Security. And if we think about the way that programs are put together, what we often see is you have a group of programs that are fragmented, loosely connected, overlapping on the left that cater for very narrow eligibility criteria, often based on poverty status, but might be something else. And then on the right, we tend to see social insurance or contributory system affiliation. And what we see here is a giant gap in the middle along the horizontal axis. That's what we tend to see, and we call that the missing middle. And that's what the guidelines that I've been referring to are talking about. And I think we'll see later in the presentation that the missing middle is not a fixed concept, and it actually affects all of us. So we see also misaligned incentives.
5 minutes.
Thank you. Steep cliff's edges, which affect the labor market and incentives to participate and sustain participation in the labor market. So those are important things to keep in mind when we're looking at the system and how its components work together. So we'll go a bit farther on the programmatic dimensions. As I said, we won't get to anything administrative today. I'll leave that to you. These are just some of the guidelines that give us a bit of tips on how we might look at our system in different ways, how we might think about coordination, how we might think about financing, some of the same principles that Mariko mentioned. But if we want to think now constructively rather than critically about the policy diagram we just saw, this depicts a much more coherent and integrated model, what we're increasingly calling a multi-tiered model, that shows us how we might combine tax-financed and contributory systems. So rather than just throwing them out there on the map and seeing what happens, we actually think about this nexus, especially this critical policy and administrative nexus that matters for formalization. We think about alignment of benefits. We think about how we can make it so that work always pays, but also that we have minimum protections regardless of what your labor market status is. And we'll hear later today from our friends in Oman who show us that extension is not only through contributory systems, it's achieved through multi-tiered forms. So I'm just going to 2 more minutes and then we'll wrap up with the concluding slides. But this is to build on what was said before about formalization strategies taking a piece-by-piece approach, that is true. Of course, they need to be coherent, but it is true that sectoral dimensions are important, and the same ILO informality dashboard can actually help you slice your own systems by sector and visualize and see how you're doing on in different sectors, but also the structure of employment in those sectors. And these can be really important tools that you use both in the diagnostics phase, but also in setting your priorities. So this is an example from Argentina, but it essentially shows a sector of construction where you can see that employment has fallen by 3%, but actually formal employment in the construction sector has fallen by 26%, 27%. So something's wrong. These kinds of tools really help you. And there's been a lot of success. This is an example of countries that, well, this is a selection of countries, but it shows that there has been a lot of progress in the domestic work sector in different countries, precisely by identifying solutions that are tailored to that specific sector and then reinforcing those efforts. I'm going to skip the administrative and the governance because we're going to talk a lot about that over the next couple of days. And I'm just going to conclude, I'm going to skip this as well because it complements what Mariko said about some of the basic principles and what we've learned from international experiences. The main point here would be that actually the policy, all of the do's and don'ts on the policy side and the do's and don'ts on the administrative side, they do have to be mutually reinforcing. So we all have heard that policies are no good without successful administration, successful implementation. Well, the vice versa holds as well. You can have the shiniest new administrative tool, but if it's actually not responding to a policy system that's working in favor of, in terms of incentives, in terms of design, formalization, then you're also rowing against the current. Now, these are just my handy guidelines-inspired checklist. I like to use these handy tools to remember myself as well, but I call it the 5 A's of when you're thinking about your Social Security system and how well it's supporting the process of coverage extension and formalization. Is it attractive? Is it affordable? That's both for the individuals, but also for the system. Is it accessible? Are people aware of their rights? Are enterprises, are workers aware of their obligations? And are they actively involved in setting the terms of those schemes and governing them? And I think that's a really important conversation in the context of the informal economy. So finally, are we all the missing middle? I think our increasingly dynamic lives, our increasingly dynamic employment trajectories, they include informality. Some of you may have dabbled with informality yourselves. Don't worry. This is a safe space. They require inclusive, flexible Social Security systems. We might be employed formally one day. We might be informally employed the next day. We might be doing it at the same time. We might be taking career breaks for unpaid care. All of those situations need to be accounted for in a comprehensive and integrated Social Security system where our incomes are fluctuating. How do we do that? Through both tax-financed and contributory guarantees, and we do that in a way that preserves incentives to be in decent work. So finally, the key messages I hope that you'll take is that informality is not inevitable. We can make dents. Extension of coverage is inseparable from the broader formalization processes that are going on in the country. Countries have achieved success through these 5 A's in different ways, which is what I hope the frame that you'll take for your conversations this afternoon. And we have to have this mutually reinforcing relationship between policies and administration, and especially in a context of extension. And finally, informality is not fixed. We have to have integrated systems that cater for all circumstances. Thanks.
So thank you very much, Shema Callan, who is Senior Officer in Social Security and Social Policy in ISSA, for giving ISSA's and your perspectives on coverage extension. Now let's change from this international organization perspective, ILO and ISSA, and go from more a national perspective. So I will call you, Ashok Kumar Singh. He is Director General of the Employees State Insurance Corporation in India, to give your perspective. So 15 minutes, please.
So, before I take you through the slides, I would just like to say that India is basically at crossroads. In the economy, we say that it's in a takeoff stage. So, we know that India is growing close to 7% per annum. And last year, we had an Indian economy $3.4 trillion. That is the fifth largest. We are aiming for third largest in 29, and we are also aiming at developed nation in 2047. Now, this vision, this trajectory automatically brings in the formalization of the labor force. And what we need to do is basically, we have to be prepared for it. We have to learn from each other to see that we do not make the same mistakes which other countries have made. So I'll just take you through the process, how the social security has been on the top priority of the Indian decision makers and in the country, and then in the last, what we are doing. And just to tell you that we are basically, for the past many years, since the beginning, we are focusing on two things. One is obviously the medical benefit, and the second one is injury or the death benefit. So this slide basically tells you that what happens when the job moves to the formalization, more stability, more contractual protection to the worker, and better benefits. This is about the need. If we see, India has got a 48.8% of the workforce which has got access to some form of the security. And why formalization matters, I just narrated. We have many slides to cover, so I'll just rush through. This is what happening in India. 1952, EPFO was formed, and in 1972, this EPS scheme was launched, which ensured the pension to the people. Then Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana, that was launched during the COVID to enhance the formalization of the labor. E-Shram portal is the new initiative, which Honorable Minister also mentioned it. We are having 30.55 crores of workers who are in this database. And this database has been integrated with the various skill portals, service portals. This is about this pension yojana, that PMSBY, where 3,000 rupees is ensured. It is for 18 to 40 years. We have a 49 lakhs beneficiaries. National pension scheme for traders, similar kind of a thing. We have a 55,000 beneficiaries. National Careers Center. It's about linking up the various employment exchanges of the state, and also different skilling portals, and then towards the job. It's like a matching the employer and employees. These are the schemes for the coal workers, wheelie workers, plantation workers. This is the one which was launched in 2017, that PMJY, and close to 60 crores, 600 million beneficiaries are there, and slowly India is moving towards this universal health coverage. We have a PM Jeevan Jyoti Yojana. It's a very unique, at the premium of just 20 rupees per person, and it is basically writes on the bank account, and it's one of the runaway success program of the government. And the vision is basically that nobody should die without insurance. So that it fulfills that. We have a Suraksha Bima Yojana, where person gets 2 lakhs in case he dies because of something else. We have a building construction workers. All states are monitoring it. Close to 6 crores beneficiaries are there. They have got benefits right from the education, health, pensions. And we have Atal Pension Yojana. Right now we have a 3.5 crores beneficiaries. The Atal Pension Yojana basically 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 4,000, 5,000 slabs. And and we are anticipating that in another 5 years it will cross 7 crores. These are some of the challenges which we face, which has been mentioned by my previous speakers, so I'll not go into that. These are the opportunities. This is the time basically we need to gear up our systems to ensure that our workforce gets the social security base. These are the challenges. So strategy for doing that is obviously we should have a closer interaction with our employers, monitoring and evaluation without then capacity building, policy initiatives, convergence, simplification of regulatory frameworks, awareness, incentivizing, formalization, and enhancing of ESIC infrastructure. The government is working towards this, gig and platform workers very actively, and most of the solutions are technology driven. One of the advantages which country has, vice versa the other countries, is that our technology stack is really helping the lot of business to come up, and especially this Aadhaar database, which is helping in deduping, identifying the person, and we have got a good payment system, which basically ensures that payment can be received and payment benefits can be delivered without any hassles. So this is the ESIC role. In the coming days, you will be seeing that the ESIC, which was established in 1948, it's right now we have got a near about 4 crores beneficiaries, which we expect to go up to near about 6 crores beneficiary in another 2 years, and we will see that more kind of workforce, more kind of security with different security features will come up. We are in the design stage, but we intend to cover as many informal workers as possible, and for which we need a series of more number of hospitals, better services. So we are now venturing into, we are now starting our own medical institutions, and by beginning of this March, we will have 10 new medical colleges functioning under the ESIC, which will provide tertiary care to our insured person, workers. And another unique feature is that it's an end-to-end, means even if we have to spend crores of rupees, we do that. And another feature which is very attractive to both employers and employee is that we have got medical colleges where near about 40% seats are reserved for these for the wards of the IP, insured person. And it's almost at a very negligible cost. Hardly 1 lakh rupees per annum is the fees, which can be always supported by what the scholarship programs are being run by the state and center. So this is what we are planning. We are going to expand our this ESIC scheme coverage to whole of the country in coming days. We still have, out of 778 districts, we still have 103 districts where it is partially implemented and 104 where it is yet to be implemented. We are working on a partnership with the PMJY for the health coverage, and we are gearing up our systems, IT system, to ensure that more and more beneficiaries can be given the benefits.
Ashok, 5 minutes, okay?
So this is code on Social Security 2020. It's already it's with us, and this has been this was enacted in 2020, and it basically envisions that all workforce shall be covered by the Social Security, and where ESIC and EPFOs have been identified as the one of the two important organizations to take it forward. So this is the role of ESIC, which which the government is envisaging. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much, Ashok, for giving the perspectives on how India, and more specifically ESIC, is giving the perspective for increasing coverage. Let me now go to the stage and see if someone has some question. We could lump into 3 questions, so I don't know if someone wants to question. If someone wants, please raise your hand and say from your name, from who you are, and to whom the question is directed. I don't know if someone wants to make some question. Okay, please. Okay, please. If you can raise. So this is the first question from the stage.
Thank you for the opportunity. I represent the employer group, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. I'm myself an industrial relation professional from India. My name is Sri Nageshwar. Now my question is to the ILO expert and ISA expert, ISSA expert. If you are called upon to identify 2 most important reasons for informalization in the international stage, from your experience, which one would you identify? 2 most important reasons for the informalization.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if there is another question from the audience, because we can. Okay, please, you can raise, say your name and to whom the question is directed.
Good afternoon. My name is Sudipto Ghosh. I'm from EPFO. From the presentation that has been made here, one of the basics in organizing any social security scheme would be the funding. And now most of the countries face a challenge to how to bring about a balance between tax funding and social insurance. Your thoughts on it, both to ILO expert as well as to the ISSA expert. Thank you.
Okay, let me see if there is one more question for this first round. No? Okay, so Mariko, if you want to begin. You can. Yeah.
Working? Working? Okay. So I will start from the first question about the 2 important reasons of informalization. Informalization in relation to social protection, I would say. And the first challenge, or the first reason of most important, one of the most important reasons of informalization and not covered by social protection is related to actually to the second point, the financing. How to finance these informal workers in under the social protection system, and how to finance. As the second person also mentioned that, you know, like there are classic type would be the tax financing of the non-contributory scheme or the social insurance mechanism to be further developed. But, you know, like still, developing social insurance mechanism to extend the coverage to informal workers is still challenging, because informal workers themselves are very difficult to grasp still. So in this respect, that I would say that one of the informalization of the lacking the social protection would be the financing aspects. I would list up actually the 3 points, because there is a legal vis-a-vis implementation aspect, so some countries do have legal coverage, whereas that implementation of this legislation is not functioning well. Some countries do not have a legal system to extend social protection coverage to the informal workers. So I think, the second point is a legal vis-a-vis implementation aspect. I'm sorry, but third point would be the social protection scheme design, which has to be adapted to the specifics of the informal workers, because as I mentioned, that eventually the formalization of the informal workers is the way to have a stable social protection coverage to these workers, whereas that it cannot be achieved in a short period of time. So in this respect, that how the scheme design to be made to be adapted to these specific workers, and then which includes the financing aspects, but it's not only about that. So I would list up these 3 points. Thank you.
Thank you. Shri.
Yes. No, thanks for the questions. I think they go to the heart, because yes, the diagrams on the drivers of informality, there are lots of them. They're complex, they're interrelated, so it's difficult to choose just 2. However, well, maybe I'm going to preface that with let's divide this into when informality is a choice and when it's not. So when it's not a choice, affordability is by far, and contributory capacity is by far the biggest driver of the numbers in terms of informal employment and in terms of global indicators, by far. But let's set aside and let's turn to the population for which formalization is a choice, and there is some degree of contributory capacity. And in those cases, I think the biggest drivers are probably invisibility. And that's something that's being tackled in a lot of different ways. Technology is providing us with lots of opportunities there that we'll hear about over the next couple of days here in India. You've got e-Shram, and I think that's really, really important. In lots of countries, the establishment of national IDs, national unified registries, those are really important steps in that direction. But they can't work by themselves. And again, you've got to Mariko's point, the other factor would be about the incentives, about the design. What is your system actually doing from the pull side? Is it attractive? What brings someone to knock on the door of a social security institution and say, where's my benefits? Well, those benefits have to be relevant. They have to be providing something of value to them in order to do that. And that, we often think about and we talk about old age pensions, we talk about working age benefits as really key, but we can also think about child benefits, and I think it's an important, can be an important first interface with a social security system at birth through something like a universal child benefit that, it's not something you have to condition people necessarily on certain behavior to receive. Merely offering it brings people to the door for the first time, establishes a positive relationship with the social security system. So I think probably invisibility and incentives.
Thank you. Ashok, do you want to comment something on these questions? No? Okay, let me see if the floor has some additional questions. So just two, because we are short on time. So, okay, I'm seeing you. Okay, so please. If you can identify yourself, make the question.
So I'm Madhumita Das. I'm a financial advisor in the Ministry of Labour. I have two small questions. One is to the ILO expert. You have mentioned that there is you have shown a graph where you have shown that there's tax finance, there's also contributory and tax finance, and then contributory, mandatory contribution, and then voluntary contribution. Can you give us examples of some countries which have used all of these four, and at what stage of development are those countries? That would be very useful to know. The other thing was that all of the speakers have talked about various, social security is not just the, the workplace contributory social security or the pensions or the insurance. You have talked about early childhood interventions, you have talked about health, you have talked about nutrition, etc. So I think it's also necessary that when we are looking at social security indices of various countries, we need to have more diversity in the way we are calculating how much social security is being provided. And I'm personally very, very happy to see that from the childhood onwards, from the cradle to grave, whatever benefit that a society is providing, including the government, should be counted towards social security. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see if there is another question from the audience. Okay, please, Secretary.
I'd like to ask Shia, she spoke about the missing middle, and we now see the rise of flexible working models and also more and more people who are self-employed. She spoke about inclusive, flexible social security systems, integrated systems that cater to all circumstances. I'd like to know if there's been some work on that. Are there any models we can study, any countries? Thank you.
Okay, so two questions. So let me start with you, Shobha.
I think the questions were related, so I'm going to take them together, if you don't mind, and then let me know if I haven't answered sufficiently. Just in terms of where countries have been pursuing a combination of tax-financed and contributory systems, I've jotted down a few, but the ILO has a huge global, and the ISSA in the World Social Protection Database has huge global repository of more information. But what jumped to mind were quite a few countries in the region. So Nepal has the universal old age pension as a low-income country. So again, it is possible, it is affordable. Jump to the other end of the income spectrum, we have Oman. So if you haven't been following, Oman's just implemented a comprehensive reform of the social protection system that includes a set of universal benefits, child benefits, disability, and old age, but also combined with and fully integrated with contributory system and extension on the contributory side. Mongolia comes to mind as well. The child money program in Mongolia, nearly universal, which operates alongside a robust social security, social insurance system in Mongolia that's actively pursuing extension to specific populations. Herders comes to mind, but others as well. I think of in low-income countries in sub-Saharan Africa, there are quite a few cases of universal pensions. So I can think of Kenya, I can think of Uganda in those cases. Now, technically those are benefit tested, but effectively they're universal pensions. Mauritius has always had a multi-tiered pension system and has just recently implemented a universal child benefit. Vietnam, switching gears, coming back to the region, also has very strong social pension and combined with the contributory system. So lots and lots and lots of examples. Going to Latin America, Uruguay, Brazil, we have the expert here on stage who can talk to us about Brazil later if you have questions. And I think that also answers then the question about these integrated systems. And I'm not going to steal the show because you'll hear from Oman, but I think that's a really good example of how to go about designing systems that are coherent from the get-go, from a life course and life cycle perspective. And that's maybe a dimension that didn't come out so clearly in our presentations this morning, but it's absolutely behind the international frameworks for Social Security extension, is when you're rooted in a life cycle approach, life course approach, it's much easier to integrate specific types of benefits.
Thank you. Mariko, do you want to have some remarks?
Yes, I just would like to supplement to what she has mentioned. Some country cases, for example, it's true to say that we find more examples on tax finance based than so-called contributory or social insurance based. But it depends on how you see the scheme design itself. Because, you know, like for example, in the developed countries, like I'm from Japan, and then, you know, like we have tax-based system and contributory system, and the contributory system is applicable, we have a scheme applicable for the self-employed workers, and then if we do not have a scheme, then these self-employed workers becomes informal. But if there are schemes to be applied for the self-employed self-employed workers, then they become formal, and then they are the part of contributory system. So in this sense that if we find some combination, combination of, applying both, examples of tax-based and the contributory system, and then many of the developed countries already have this system, because they have already succeeded to formalize many of the self-employed people, self-employed workers in the country. I just give a little bit of more examples of mid-income countries, which can be quite relevant to the case of India. For example, another case would be the Thailand. Actually, this is more of the tax-based system, tax-based or the subsidy-based system. And then the scheme has been extended. First, it was extended to private formal sector employees and the civil servants, and which has been extended to the informal workers, and then it's financed solely from the tax-based. So this is one of the example of tax-based system. Another one which I remember is, for example, I think it was Guatemala, which is a quite interesting case of developing and extending social protection to domestic workers, but how to finance is that they have so-called solidarity system that formal workers' contribution, small percentage of the formal workers' contribution is allocated to domestic workers' social protection system, and then extend social protection. So it's not exactly the social insurance based for the domestic workers, but actually domestic workers can be a part of the social insurance system via having a kind of subsidy from the social insurance system, not necessarily from the tax finance system. So I just would like to give these two country examples for your information. Thank you.
Ashok, do you want to? No? So unfortunately, I'm seeing the time. We have to finish. So I will ask you to stay in the stage. So and the Master of Ceremony to give the instructions. And okay, please. And as she is arriving, so all these discussions will continue today in a more in-depth perspective from a country experiences. And we are going to talk about many different topics over these 2 days, so including incentives, digital solutions and communication, gender equality, data collection, other topics as well. Going from this general overview from international organizations and the perspectives from India to more specific topics. So, please.
With this, we come to the end of the first session. It was an eye-opening session with mindful deliberations from all the speakers. I would like to thank all the speakers for their stimulating presentations and ISSA Secretary General, Mr. Marcelo Cateno, for an efficient moderation of the entire discussion. I am sure we will greatly benefit from your expertise on the subject. I now request Mr. Cateno to present mementos to all our speakers as a token of appreciation. Please bring the mementos. Ms. Mariko Uchi, kindly receive the memento. I request the audience to give a huge round of applause. Ms. Shai McClanahan, kindly receive the memento for your wonderful presentation. Shri Ashok Kumar Singh, respected DG sir, kindly receive the memento, sir. Thank you, sir. I now request respected Director General ESIC, Shri Ashok Kumar Singh, to present a memento to Mr. Marcelo Cateno for his wonderful moderation of this session. Thank you so much for attending this session, but we have an important announcement to make, and that is the release of the souvenir by Ministry of Labour and Employment. So I request our revered dignitaries to please come on the stage, and I now call upon Joint Secretary Shri Rupesh Kumar Thakurji to moderate the session.
I'm really very glad that today the ministry is coming out with a book, namely Social Protection in India. So for unveiling of the book, I would like to invite Honorable Union Minister of Labour and Employment, Honorable Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Secretary Labour and Employment, President of International Social Security Association, and DG ESIC. Please come to the dais. I would request CPFC sir also to come to the dais. Sir, this is a book on social protection in India, and this reflects India's commitment to social protection, blending global milestones with our nation's rich legacy. And apart from global context, sir. Thank you, sir. Apart from global context, sir, this India's inspiring journey has been beautifully depicted in this book, starting from Vedic period, Ashoka's edict, progressing through to the modern social welfare advancements. And it also showcases the evolution of key social security laws and groundbreaking schemes which provide global perspective on India's social protection coverage. And we hope, sir, that this book serves both as a reflection and as a guide for our continued efforts towards ensuring social protection for all. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. We will distribute the books to all the dignitaries present here, and I am sure that it will be helpful and it will benefit you. Thank you.
We will now break for lunch. All the dignitaries, participants, delegates, and guests are requested to proceed to the lunch area adjacent to this hall. We will reassemble at 2 p.m. sharp for the next session. Thank you.